Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Indie Game Movement, the podcast that talks about the marketing and business of indie games. I'm Andrew Pappas, and I'm going to be your host today. And what we're going to be talking about is the clarity nobody tells you to look for. Now, have you ever reached a point where everything looks right on the surface, but something still feels off? Not because anything is broken, but because something fundamental was never really understood. You know, it's something most of us have felt at some point in time, whether it's in our work, our projects, or even ourselves. That's exactly why I invited Joe Henson of Indie Game Joe with us today to share his journey and what happened when he finally came to face with that same realization. Because the clarity he found didn't just change one thing, it changed everything. And today, he breaks down what our journey can reveal to us and how we can use that to unlock our own clarity. So that's what we're going to be talking about right here today on Indie Game Movement. Hey, everybody, and we're back. And today with me, I have none other than Joe Henson, otherwise known as Indie Game Joe. Joe, how's it going, man? It's so great to have you here again on the show.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me again. And it's I want to say it's going great, but it's been a tough few weeks, few months to be honest. But onwards and upwards.
Yeah, onwards and upwards indeed. And obviously, today we're gonna get into probably a little bit of that and stuff, but with a interesting different theme that we have for today. But first, for those of you who aren't familiar with Joe, he is, the founder of Indie Game Joe. And I mean, you do everything from creative gameplay design, marketing, all for all digital cyber cherries is also, essentially a studio that you not just work with, it's like yours with some friends and things, and so many great projects and stuff. But Joe, why don't you tell us a little bit more about digital cyber cherries, the work you do, and some of those projects?
Yeah, so how to untangle all this so it doesn't become a big mess. So first of all, I do want to just sort of preempt this with, and we'll get into it, is that I am full blown ADHD, recently got diagnosed, struggled with it all my life. So if I go off the path of what I'm saying, or if I forget or get a bit muddied, do apologize. Can't help it. It is just me. So I'm going to do my best to explain this.
Yeah, you're all good.
So yeah, I'm Joe Henson. Indie Game Joe is my brand, my company. I'm my own boss, have nobody else working for me. It is just me. And where do we go back to? So I guess I'll start here. I think it's one of those things people often look at and think, oh, there's this guy here who he must have already had like industry connections or some academic background or a degree in marketing or university. And for me, my sort of story was very different. I left school at 15 with, we call them GCSEs. So I didn't have really, maybe I had, maybe art is the only qualification I had. I got like, I just passed. So basically I left school with no real qualifications, failed in pretty much everything. And at 15 is when I left school, and I had 2 weeks off and went straight into the family and painting business with my dad and my brothers. And I did that for about 13 years. And it's the bits in between, I suppose, which are important. So during those 13 years, and decorating, I always loved gaming. I was always gaming. That's always been a not just a passion of mine, but it's also been something where it was like a get out of depression card, I would say. And I think
Yeah,
it
and
is
an escape.
for many people. Yeah, exactly. I don't know what I would have done without it. Without my computer, or without sort of games, even I'd say especially without Steam and Counter Strike, because that was a big part of my life. Counter Strike 1.6.
Yeah.
Oh man, like I really think I would have struggled without that so hard to get to where I was going, because that
Mhm.
was just I could kind of be somebody else playing that game. It took me away from all my
Yeah.
issues, and you could just yeah, it just took you to another place. But I'm going a little bit off tangent there, so I'm gonna try and shift my brain back to what the point I was making before I forget. So decorating for 13 years, and yeah, during those years, I started to create a lot of fan websites for lots of different games. So started off with Left 4 Dead 2. I created a really big community for those games. And then lots of indie games. I can't remember all of them. A lot of AAA games. I did loads. I had always like little projects where I just
Mm.
wanted to make fan sites because I didn't realize it at the time, but I was good at creating communities. I was I suppose you could say I was networking as well. Again, I didn't realize I was doing that because when I would create these fan websites, unintentionally, developers would reach out via email back then. Again, this is going, wow, man, I'm so old. I think about it now. Where's time gone? Going back to when will this be? When I was 15, 2009? Yeah, 2010, 7. Email was more of the thing then. Social media wasn't what it was as it is now. So I'd get emails from these devs, and it was really nice. Like the email saying, "We'd love to see you some merc," or "Do you want to do an interview with some of the devs? We're gonna share your fan website," and it was really cool. And I got friendly with some devs. And as the years went on, I just kept building fan websites because I was passionate about it.
Yeah.
And this eventually led to me wanting to create a fan website for a zombie game called Contagion. This was in 2012, 2013, I believe. And I am a zombie sort of, I love zombies. I
Yeah.
always have. You could say that's also a passion of mine, zombies. I've always loved zombie games. I was a massive fan of Zombie Panic. Yeah, Zombie Panic, ZPS1. And this game called Contagion just I loved everything about it. It was the old school type zombies. It wasn't like fast paced or mutants or anything like that. It just really like it was my type of zombie game. And I created like a really thriving community for that game over the course of a year. Got, built a lot of Steam groups used to be a big thing back in the day. And I was really good at like creating a lot of engagement through Steam groups. And I really helped Contagion get a lot of awareness. And I didn't realize, again, that wasn't actually my goal at the time. It was just I loved doing it. But nonetheless, that kind of led to me getting involved with the dev team. And this must have been, yeah, around about 2014, late third, 2000, yeah, around about 2014, maybe a bit before then. The owner of it was like, listen, Joe, I love what you're doing. I got really good friends with the devs there. Do you want to come on as like a PR assistant, community manager type thing, bit of marketing? And I'm still a decorator, of course, at this time. So I was like, yeah, cool, let's do this. And that's doing all that with Contagion is where I met who are now digital cyber cherries. So hopefully this is connecting the dots and making sense.
Mm.
So that's where I met all my friends. Fast forward about 2 years into 2015, we then decided to move on from Contagion, start our own indie studio, Digital Cyber Cherries. And we did that in 2015. And I guess from there, the rest is kind of history. But the TLDR is we ended up launching our own game, New Retro Arcade Neon, like a VR, non VR, virtual reality sort of experience. And then 2017, we worked. So Neon was 2016. Then 2017 was Hypercharge Unboxed, an action figure game. We launched in early access then. It was a complete, utter disaster. Great learning experience there, but utter disaster. We somehow made it work, kept going, launched out of early access in 2018. And it was such a struggle, man. It was like swimming against this huge current, trying to get the game seen, trying to learn from the mistakes, trying to make a good game. And 2000 and no, sorry, 2017 was early access, went terrible, as I said. 2018, we sort of made the whole game again, the same game. Did early access for 2.0, which was basically just a marketing re-release of a failed launch before, but it worked. We got more exposure and engagement on the second same release as we did the initial one. And 2020, we ported it over to Switch ourselves. Then we left early access in 2020 on Steam. And then 2022, imagine we're still working on the game, doing all this. We went massively viral, hugely viral. We reached the #2 spot on the Steam top sellers global list, whatever you call it, #2 in the charts. And then that changed a lot of the trajectory of where Hypercharge was going. We then launched, I think it was 2024, we launched on Xbox, became a #2 in the charts then launched on PlayStation, did really well. And one big thing I forgot, which I should have mentioned, was it wasn't until 2000. So I was doing all this work, as I just said before, on the experience and paving my way, I suppose, into the industry. I did all that while still being a decorator, full-time job. It wasn't until COVID 2020, after the Steam release in 2020, when I left to officially start Indie Game Joe as a company. So there's a lot more I could go into, like the ins and outs and the nitty gritty, but I think I'll get lost with it. But that kind of sums up the journey towards all that. So it's not been smooth sailing. It's not been something that we've all just jumped into. A lot of how our success, and again, success is subjective, but our success in being able to keep making games and thrive for us has been learning from a hell of a lot of mistakes and getting things wrong, and just learning from these experiences. That's the main thing. I always say the biggest thing you can invest isn't in stocks, markets, it's investing it in yourself. And that's what we've been able to do. So it's been one hell of a journey, and I'm looking forward to the next 10 years where that's going to take us. But
yeah,
I think I answered your question, Andrew. I can't remember what you asked.
I mean, honestly, you did, and then some, because I'm sure people listening are familiar with the format and stuff and everything. But what I really like about yours is going deeper into the story, because everybody's story is different and everything else. But yours, I mean, as you let in with, you're saying people might get this impression or idea of where it came from. If it's this, you're wrong. And it's not to say that you're wrong in that. It's just I think it's more the mentality we have when we see all these stories of people doing well or whatever other activities, because it creates this facade that's in a lot of cases not intentional, right? But we get these implications of things. And you kind of dispel that to really put it down, and especially in your two, it's so, I think, gratifying and refreshing to hear how a lot of us probably we may consider humble beginnings, and that we come from all different places and everything. And to say hey, I wasn't great at school, which I can relate in a lot of ways to that to some degree. And then I also worked for this family business and everything. But through this love and passion of something I grew up with, and I can say that saved me. And sometimes I started to go from there. And the thing is, a lot of people don't hear that story, because sometimes, I don't know, we might think it's boring or whatever might come out of it. It's not necessary. But I think, and we're going to get into this, I think, more in a minute, there is definitely validity in realizing kind of where you come from, and there is still meaning behind all of that, regardless of how simple or irrelevant it may be in the greater picture, especially with what we're doing now. So thank you for that, because again, those types of things don't usually get shared, discussed, or anything for lots of different reasons. And I think it sets us I am having a hard time talking today. Sets us up well for what we're here to talk about today, which is the clarity that no one tells you to look for. Right. And a big part of this, I mean, you alluded to it a little bit. And what does that really mean? And for today, folks, what we're doing is we're essentially, Joe, using your kind of your story and other details about it as a lens to what clarity actually means. What does it mean to us as we pursue our goals, our focus, our passions, right? And we're also applying it in a broad way. So for some context, so Joe, you recently shared something with your community, and it was a post, and it was pretty personal, and it clearly resonated with a lot of people, and myself as well. We were even talking about before recording. And what's also interesting for me, I'll digress for a moment, is that I found a lot of similarities and parallels from my own journey too. And that's the thing. I bet a lot of other people were able to as well. Now, this post, there's different formats. We'll put it in the show notes so you guys have context. But just to recap, to brush everybody up who wasn't familiar with it, in it, you shared some of what you actually shared with us just now, giving us that intro in terms of, hey, this is where I came from. But and part of it, you also talked about having this like idea or vision of what you wanted, right? And then you achieved it. But at that point, you still had this feeling of being lost a little bit, which in it, you stressed kind of like frustration there, right? Or whether directly or implied. And then it wasn't until you became a dad and then went through some, other struggles, right? And then you nailed down and finally discovered you had ADHD. So all these things came to a head. And then you started to get a better grounding of things. And that grounding, right, essentially provided you clarity. And it's the clarity that helped you understood a lot more about yourself, but also the reason behind the work you do. So is that a clear representation or a fairly accurate summarization of that post? Just because I know there's a lot of information there too, but want to make sure I'm saying this accurately.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good summarize. I think it's more. I think more the takeaway there is like, it's not so much what I said; it's more like why I chose to say something that personal. I think that's what I'm taking from it.
Yes.
But so that's a good. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, because that's important, because it's like all that is interesting about what you did. But to your point, what you just said, I'm a little bit curious in terms as why. Like you just said, why was it that you shared? Because I think we were discussing a little bit earlier, but yeah, let's start there. What was really the intent behind that post?
Yeah. I had my ADHD medication specifically for this podcast because it helps you focus. It does a lot more, but I can get quite emotional talking about all this again. I don't know what it is, so I'm gonna try to get through this, but it's something that's really difficult every time. It's so why I posted all this sort of information was because it wasn't some big planned thing. It sort of just like came out of me. Going back to the ADHD, I just want to sort of explain this as well. Like, this wasn't something where, with getting diagnosed, it wasn't something where it was like, you've got ADHD out of the blue. And I'm like, oh, I never knew that. This had been something that I'd been tested for. I'd struggled with in a way that I've not been able to explain how I was feeling or articulate, because I didn't have the language at the time with being so young to like just explain why am I feeling like this? Like, something doesn't feel right. I couldn't articulate it. And Yeah, I went to the doctors, I went to specialists, I had specialists coming around to my house. There's a lot of things that I remember now, a lot of things that my mum has told me as well. And it all comes back where I'm like, oh yeah, I remember with the teachers, like in school, it was called the special needs class, is what you called it. So I was
Hmm.
taken out of a lot of, we say normal, I hate saying that term, but a lot of normal classes or neurotypical classes, and I was put into these other classes away from what we'd call the norm. That eventually stopped after a few years, and I got moved to having like an assistant teacher in every class. So you can imagine the sort of bullying and the it was an awful, you felt a very shameful, weird feeling I went through my life with that because you have all, at that age you just don't understand, and there is a stigma with being in those classes,
Oh yeah,
especially
I
back
know.
then. For me, it was horrendous. I remember crying like I remember sitting on the stairs crying because because this was when primary school finished and I was transitioning to high school, and I was like begging my mum, to have, I don't want to go into this special needs class because I
Yeah,
knew what would come.
and real quick, that was me too, right? Like they called it in our school the blue room,
Ah,
and I was like, I was there a couple times, and but again, that same stigma and stuff. I'm like, I was telling my parents, I do not want to go in the blue room anymore.
mm.
I don't want to be part. I know it will probably help me, but no. But anyway, sorry.
No, no, nice. Yeah, it's interesting. It's always nice in a you're not as alone as you think way to
Yeah.
hear it from somebody else, you know. So it's nice to hear it in that sense. But yeah, going back to that, so the why. I just wanted people to sort of know that it isn't something where I just not that it would invalidate it any less if that was the case, but that it isn't the case where it was just like, oh, you've got this. It's something I've struggled with loads. And growing up, going through school, I always did feel like I didn't know who I was. Like there was this, yeah, you can call it masking, I suppose, like an identity crisis. I always seemed to act differently around different people, like have different personalities to try and fit in. So I've went all my life not knowing really who I was or who I was supposed to be or where should I fit in? Do I try to fit in? Like I've never really fully understood that about myself. And that's kind of the same a little bit, to be honest, with me with doing what I do. Like I do feel like the position I'm in, making games with my best friends, do all this marketing stuff with Indie Game Joe. I've led the design of my own game and shipped it under Indie Game Joe. I've done all this stuff, but I kind of feel like this is probably the imposter syndrome as well, but it is definitely part of the ADHD where I snuck in this back door and
Hmm.
I'm almost waiting for somebody with credentials to grab me and say, Joe, you're not meant to be here. Get the fuck out. That's kind of what I felt like all my life. I'm not meant to be here. And
So
that's probably a bit of the rejection. I think, yeah, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, if I pronounce that right, where with ADHD, it's the parts in our brain is like the way we internalize fear and rejection is very different to a neurotypical person, where to
mm,
us, it can physically cause pain inside and we can mull over things and over sort of, what's the word? We overanalyze
yep.
things ridiculously. And a neurotypical person's brain isn't wired the same way. And as well, I do want to say, like, one thing that really frustrates me is when people say, well, when some people say, and it's lack of education, some of it is spiteful, it's still frustrating and upsetting, where it's like, oh, everyone's got, you know, when people say everyone's got a bit of
Yeah,
ADHD
I knew you were gonna say that.
or everyone, you know, it's just giving a term for everybody. And I'm like, motherfucker, you know, you are either born with it or you're not. And if we're going to get into the science about it, it's like from a, I don't know if this is the right word, but like from a neurological point of view, like brain scans and things, it's one of the, I think it's the most tested scientific thing that humans have ever done, like ADHD. You can see it on brain scans. You can literally see it, like what's happening compared to a neurotypical person. So it isn't some
Yeah,
made up thing, and it's
it's
very like invalidating and hurtful because it's like it's essentially like don't know how to say it's like saying It's like saying, no, you're this way. It's like saying basically you're not this way because of a scientific
Yeah.
reason, or and it also it's illegal. It is a disability.
Yeah.
Like it's in the UK, it's legally classified as a disability. And I do say it's debilitating. For me, it's debilitating. And I get when people do say, this is another time, I'm going on a tangent here now. But when people say, and I know they mean well, like, it's a superpower ADHD, you know, I'm like, I just want to say, the fuck are you talking about? A superpower? Andrew, if it is a superpower, let's give my ADHD to Batman. Gotham is fucked. Can you imagine if the Joker's he's being kidnapped? Sorry, Robin's being kidnapped by the Joker. Batman runs out, needs the Batmobile, but where's his keys? I know ADHD is more than forgetfulness, but you get what I mean. Like, I'm sorry. I think we need to also normalize that it's okay not to be okay. This is my take on it. It's just, it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
good. If I could choose not to have it, I would choose not to have it. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I hate not being able to focus on something. I hate having hyper focus, fixating on something. I hate caring so deeply what people think about me. I hate like this imposter syndrome. I hate the mood swings. Like, there is so much to it. It isn't just
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
hyper, and it isn't just being moody. There is so much to it people don't understand. And I don't expect everybody to understand, but like,
Right.
just trying to point out, like, it isn't just some generic term ADHD. It is very, very debilitating. It's very different for different people. Again, it's subjective, but it's not easy. I can't remember how I actually got to this point now, so you're gonna have to get me back
That's
on
right.
track.
Well, I want to look back at something real quick though, because we were talking about the reason why, and from what I can gather, like for the post, and what I can gather is two things. One is from hearing what you're saying and everything, I think it's very helpful in confirming and surfacing all this that you've been dealing with for up until this point of your life, right? And to
Mm.
put it out there and know that it's like true, right? And it does a lot. And on the flip side of that, though, I know very well what your intentions are here too, and it's not to come off as any form of opportunity or anything else. If anything, you're looking at it as a means. I know somehow this can help and serve others. And it's those two main things I think are a big component in terms of why you did that.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's the part I was trying to get to. So thank you for bringing me back there. But yeah, no, going like with all that about me and me wanting to, with that post, that was certainly something where I did want to pull off the mask or this skin and be like, fuck it, this is me, guys. You can like it or you can love it, but I ain't being someone else anymore just to try and fit in.
Yeah.
Like, this is me. And in doing that, there was part of me, because I have always been an advocate for mental health and I've always liked to help others, have a lot of empathy. Part of that was, if I'm feeling like this, surely there's got to be others who are feeling similar. And wow, the response to the post was just that and some more. Like, I got emails, everything from just mainly, yeah, men in similar situations, like married, kids, who have ADHD and have felt so. Literally, people were messaging me saying like they cried reading it, and it was, don't get me wrong, it was awesome in that sense to be like, wow, I don't have a character flaw or I'm not unlovable. This is something that people actually deal with. And it was awesome. That validation was awesome. But it was also awesome to know, like, okay, me coming out and exposing myself is helping people. That feels good. And I'm glad people confide in me that way, because if it took me all that courage to write that, imagine how hard it is for somebody else. Like, so I felt like if
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it, who will in that sense? You know, I know there's lots of advocates for ADHD, but in this space, the games industry, like, I felt like I just wanted to be a bit of a voice
Yeah.
and have this platform sort of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No,
So
totally.
that's kind of why I posted it. I actually got confused with the initial question. It's not you, it's my fault.
No, no,
I think
no.
why I went off a tangent because I was trying to answer why I started Indie Game Joe, but the question was the Reddit post. See, again, that's
It's
ADHD.
yeah. No, it's all good. And I mean, one thing I want to call out to folks too is yes, we're here with Joe today and we're approaching these and other questions from this lens. But the key thing that at least I would like you to have a takeaway from all of this too is yes, we're approaching this with Joe's lens. Yes, this is, clearly a lens of different things, especially ADHD, but that can be anything. And I think to your last comment there about like coming forward with this, I mean, any form of advocacy, any form of like obstacles or challenges that we're facing can really just be the thing that fills in that blank. And that's what we're here today to discuss about this concept and idea of clarity. This can, and we'll get into in a moment, but this can attribute all the way down to the work you're doing, your projects, your games that you care about. And it can go all the way back to how that affects your studio, the people you work with, your business, and then even down to you personally. All of these relate to each other. And today, with Joe's lens, that's exactly what we're going to explore more of. And so, one thing I want to call out, Joe, and get your thoughts on. You mentioned earlier about feeling that you couldn't really articulate these things, whether it related to eventual finding of ADHD, other things that you express in the posts. And I'm curious, most people, and I'm assuming here, but I think I have a pretty good idea of this. I think you do as too. They push through those feelings of and other stuff of something being off, let's say, but without ever really stopping to examine it. And maybe they can't. Maybe there's not enough reason to, or whatever that thing is that might prevent them from doing so. But what do you think are the things that get in the way of people actually pushing a little bit more to look inward? In your case, like what finally made you to do it?
Okay, so what finally made me do it? I'm gonna try and yeah, I think there's three things to this. So I'll go back a bit and go more into detail with the reality for me that did it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing I want to say, like I think in general, the biggest thing I feel that stops everyone looking inward at ourselves is certainly fear. Like fear certainly I think like fear occurs in proportion to importance, if you see what I mean. With myself, like understanding me, like in this world, the number one person is yourself in terms of I don't mean that in a selfish
Correct.
way, more like if I can't look after myself or I don't put myself first, how can I look after my kid? How can I
Exactly.
look after my wife? So I mean it from that perspective.
Right. Like
And
like in the airplanes, they tell you if the oxygen masks drop, put yours on first.
yeah, exactly. So it was so last year was when I got my diagnosis, and that was around the time when my son was don't know how old he would have been, maybe like 7 months or something. And don't quote me on that, but yeah, he was young, and I always knew being a parent would be hard. So I'm going to try and answer
Yeah, yeah.
like why it's difficult sort of thing. I knew being a parent would be, I knew it would be hard. I knew that going in, it's hard for anybody. But my difficulty, especially with the ADHD and not being diagnosed at the time, was like doing it on what I could only describe the hardest difficulty, like nightmare mode. Everything just like didn't really make sense to me, like the overwhelmedness, the weird kind of fatigue that I had, the major up and down emotions. Like I was really in a dark place, really bad. Not the fear of like not being a good dad, the generational trauma, thinking, when you don't understand, like when you push through a feeling when something's off and you don't understand it, especially when you're just a new dad, there is this massive fear of like, what am I going to do? This is going to affect my kid growing up. Like, if I can't solve this, what am I going to do? And there's this feeling of like loneliness I had just got worse and worse. And it was really difficult because my wife, she's a nurse by trade, but she technically works under me now in Game Joe, so I pay her a wage. We've we're both healthy. She's a stay-at-home mum. Financially, we're very stable in such a good position. We've paid off the house, bought the dream car, paid off all the debt. In that sort of side of things, we've got everything. I've got the dream office. I've always wanted since a little kid. I've got the dream job, decide my own hours. I'm my own boss, work with my best friends. I get to make games and market games, like everything that I ever wanted, like this mountain that I used to look up and think, you ain't getting up that, Joe. But at the same time, maybe one day I will. And it's like I finally got to this
You're there.
mountain
Yeah.
and I'm there. And sat down, get a cup of tea out, and I'm look around to my left. Nobody's there. Look to my right. Nobody's there. And I realize, shit, it is lonely up here. Like, why am I feeling so incredibly lonely and down? I couldn't work it out. And this was like, I've got this healthy boy. I'm married to this amazing woman. I
Yeah,
got
you
all
got
this stuff.
everything.
And it's like, I've gotten like this, don't have to worry about anything, like in that sense. And I'm like, why am I struggling so much? Why am I being like, why am I not being a great husband? Why am I not being a great dad? Like all these dark thoughts were just in my head. And again, it all relates to when you said like most people push through that feeling of something being off without ever stopping to examine it. So this is where I'm getting at here. And it just kept getting worse and worse. And I'm still going to therapy at the time. I don't think I mentioned this. Like I've been going to therapy consistently. I've had no breaks since my early 20s. And it got to a point where I was just, yeah, in such a dark hole where I was like, I can't, I was just crying all the time, Andrew. Like, I was just a mess. And my wife was like picking up a hell of a lot of the pieces. She was really doing a lot of the heavy lifting. She's like a superhero in that respect. And she was, don't get me wrong, never made me feel bad for it. She was very, very good. And we both knew something was there. Livy, my wife, of course, I'd spoke to her about the ADHD, and she'd always sort of thought it's very likely that or Asperger's or dyspraxia, some other things. So we'd known about it, talked about it. It's just when you become a parent, it's rightly so, like it does become all about the baby.
Yep.
Everything in your life does change, as
You
you
start
know.
realizing it's no longer all about you.
Yeah, it does. And the thing with me, Andrew, what was difficult is I've never really learned to look after myself. I've always had someone do it for me, be it my mum when I was growing up, be it, I left the family business. Sorry, I went straight into the family business. I had my brothers and my dad protecting me. It was all very structured, my life, until the moment I left and started into Game Joe. It was very structured. I always had a support group around me. And of course, my wife, when I met her, when we moved in with each other, she does everything. I say everything for me. She's a big support beam for me. And I just felt like I couldn't, and I felt like I needed to really examine myself and be like, okay. I did a bit of research into the ADHD one night. It's like, look, I'm going to have to live it, like get some help here and get examined. So I decided to pay privately and went through a lengthy process of going through all my background, checking everything, doing all these tests, and it came back the results. And it's more than just a score, what they do, but essentially like on a scale, mine was, I think I can't remember, don't quote me on this, but on the scale, like if you like get a certain number, like I think it's even 60 is considered very high. Maybe no, 40 I think is considered lightly you've got ADHD. I got 91 out of 100. I even the tests, I failed 3 times the test because I didn't understand what they're asking. I have a very, very hard time. Like I can't understand instructions. I can't even build furniture. My wife does it because I don't know what it is in my brain. It's so frustrating. I cannot. If my life was on the line for it, I would die. That's how bad it is. I just can't.
Oh
I
man.
can't do that side of it. So
But and if you're
I
referring to, I don't know what they do in England, but if you're referring to the Vanderbilt scales, which they are like scale testing for diagnosing ADHD, which is standard at least over here. I hate some of those questions, like because they're so arbitrary. Anyways, keep going.
yeah, no, this one was like I had to do a bunch of things. Yeah, it was awful. Really, it was not easy for me. But again, it was private because I wanted to get
Yes.
like the gold standard for it,
Oh yeah.
basically.
Yep.
And I remember when I spoke to the what do you call it? The lady who gave me the results were on camera, and when she told me, Joe, she said you have ADHD, on the full spectrum. There's traits of autism. There is clear depression there, and there's rejection sensitivity dysphoria. There's all these things, and everything does describe my life. It isn't like, oh, this is a shock. I was like, oh, well, okay, well, I know now. So they suggested medication, what could help. And when she told me, I'll never forget, I never forget her face. She went, "Are you okay, Joe?" And I don't know, maybe when she told me the results, I thought I looked fine, like it wasn't a big deal. I was like, yeah, like, okay, at least I know now. Because my
Yeah.
biggest fear, honestly, was more if I don't have it, then I must be stupid. Maybe what the teachers and the
Mm.
bullies, I hate saying this word, I was always called retarded when I was younger. And I thought, oh my God, am I retarded? Is there something wrong with my brain? Like, I was so scared. So in that sense, I was happy that's something. And when I say retarded, I hate that word. I'm only saying
Yes.
that in the sense of
Yep.
that's what I was called. And I believed that at one point in my life, that because it's one of those horrible things people, bullies and stuff say. But I've thought could they be right? Is what I'm getting at. And that was my biggest fear with not having this diagnosis. It's like, well, what the hell? I must be fucking stupid then. So when she told me, she like, "Are you all right, Joe?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I must have probably gone a bit white or something. I don't know because the reaction was a bit weird. Not weird. It was like it was very attentive. And I was fine for 2 weeks. I was like, okay, I know now. I'm going to get in some medication. I'm going to try it. And it was after 2 weeks, I just had a massive breakdown. Like I thought I was crying before. Man, I was grieving.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
this type of grieving for, I was grieving for like the past I kind of wish I didn't have, and also for the future that I know I'm going to struggle with. And other things, it's a weird thing, and a lot of anger as well. It's
Mm.
literally grieving. And that went on for quite a while. It's still kind of going on, to be honest. So when that all happened, I went on medication. I finally found the one that helps. It definitely was a turning point in my family's lives and myself. It does help. It has helped. Having the diagnosis isn't just a label. It was more like a path to healing
Yeah.
and understanding. That's what it is. It's not like I've got ADHD and better. It's like, no, okay, I can finally be more forgiving to
And
myself.
that's so important to call out about you saying not a label because that has other various types of connotations too. So I'm glad you said that too. But I'm sorry.
Mm,
Continue.
mm. And when all that happened, yeah, it was more like ups and downs I'd have. So again, I've got this beautiful little boy, got my wife at home. There's a few other things that were going on as well, which were incredibly difficult, which are too personal to get into. But there was a lot of things during that time last year where everything just fell apart. Well, yeah, I won't get into
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
it, but like there was lots of other life things. Like just before my son were born, I was away from my wife at the time because I had planned to get the kitchen renovated, and we had woodworm and everything went wrong, and the whole downstairs was like a bomb went off. They had to rip up all the floors. When he was bought, the birth was traumatic. It was emergent. It was a non-planned emergency C-section
Yep.
because his heart rate just dropped. Everything was just terrible. It was very, very difficult. And then we
So
came back to our house and we had a makeshift kitchen, and I just planned
oh
everything. Everything I planned kind of went wrong because Andrew, when you have a child, a baby, you want that you have this like honeymoon period where it's just you and your wife, and
yeah. Yeah.
we never got that. It was like hell,
I know.
and
I don't think we ever got that either. 3 times. Never happened.
so you know what it's like.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like the typical. It's hard. It was like again we just had one bedroom, our kitchen was a little toaster. My wife had, I think she had like 5 spine blocks or whatever. They had to put injections into her back, so she couldn't barely walk. And in the end, we lasted 5 days, and she went to her parents' house, luckily. But it was just awful because I was at the house doing a lot of work trying to get the house ready for Christmas so we could have
Oh,
like a
just like
normal
so
day.
much.
It was honestly,
Oh my
it was
goodness.
worse than what I'm saying, and there was other things, like
Yeah.
family things that were going on that made it very difficult for me. So, anyway, that all happened, and you can imagine at that time, I'm going back a bit here, I'm still undiagnosed at that time, so you can imagine, like,
Yeah. Right.
everything was hitting me even there was so much stuff, man. It
So
was difficult.
I wanna kind of like unpack some of this stuff because I think it's really important. So when it look back when you're going through this process of looking inward, I mean, I think it's very clear that like none of this stuff was all revealed at once. Like it was a process, and it was a long process, and then on top of that, other things happened too, like you just shared, like life and stuff, right? The other thing I think was really interesting, and I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, and I will try to spell it out as best as I can. It sounded like there's lots of other things that can, let's say, prevent us from doing the self examination, right? It could be, I don't know, cultural stigmas and things like that. And we talked a little bit about it pre recording. But then there's also this other thing I recognize in what you're saying. And I'm like, this is right. And it's the support system that you called out to. You had support from your family, from your wife. And I'm not saying that that was a bad thing by no means, right? We all need our support systems. But in a way, if we have a lot of these things, such as like structure and everything else in place, right? And then all of a sudden things change, things don't go to plan, right? And that structure's gone, or it's not working, right? With what we planned for. The next thing you know, it's like, now what? You feel exposed, right? And
Mm,
but through that, it seemed like, even though, and in your case, this sounds unfortunately, very extreme, but it's through that then you are able to kind of like start picking up all these pieces, figuring things out. You still didn't have the complete clarity, but then you got to those extra points and stuff, and then you got, like you said, you were going through that grieving, which is very very common, with especially older individuals that find out that they have ADHD, and I'm sure among other things too, where it's like, because you're looking back, you're like, this explains so much and everything. It's different for everybody. So it's just really interesting, especially the support system and how that could potentially like be one of those things that don't allow us to see kind of that full picture right away, or do that self-examination that is really needed. And again, we could look at this in different ways, right? Like, part of me having this conversation today too is that, like, again, this is from a personal perspective, and yes, we're primarily looking at it from that way today, but it can also be from what you're doing for your activities with your projects and things like that. These things are all related, and I like talking about things this way too, because me personally, that's how I do a lot of things. Like, I find that
mm.
connection between the work I do, what's fulfilling for me, and also how does it impact my family, how does it impact me as an individual. And honestly, I believe it's somewhat logical, because it's like, if you can find that common thread to everything that you're doing, it's just, you're streamlining it. It's less work.
Yeah,
But
no, that makes sense.
so in light of all this stuff, I want to let's get to the point where, I guess, where you're at now, right? Now you have this understanding, and you're in the position you are now, which, let's say, let you say, you have everything that's relative to you and important to you. Now we have this now you have this understanding. And now a lot of these things are now, because you're reframing them a bit, right? I would think so. You're looking at them differently, and I think, again, why we're here today, the post is, I think, a good representation of that. What would you say is kind of the most surprising thing that started to look different once you got to this understanding?
The Yeah, the most surprising thing was, this is what you're asking, and for me was like being accepted for who I am in regards to the post or the reaction to my story was being accepted. That's what surprised me the most, and also it was me figuring out that again, the reason I've gotten where I am now is because it's just me. So yes, kind of resent ADHD. Yes, I have struggled, but also I've gotten here through me. I haven't snuck into this back door, like I said. This is what surprised me. Like, I am capable of more than I think. I can do these things. I'm not stupid. Like, this is more and more coming towards me. Like, this little boy who was frightened and scared and ashamed of himself for so many years, he's the reason why people resonated so well to what I said, and why people are drawn to me. It's me, because that's what surprised me. That me being, yeah, the validation or the honesty with myself. You're still Joe, and J- Joe is good enough. Do you know what I mean? So that's
Mm.
what surprised me. Like that, I suppose that self acceptance, or the realization of, wow, yeah, maybe there is something like here. Maybe I'm not this flawed personality. Maybe I'm not an imposter. Maybe I'm not stupid. Maybe I am good at what I do. And just accepting and realizing, like, being me is good enough, and fuck what anyone else thinks.
Yeah.
That's what I'm realizing more, and that's what surprised me the most with it all.
And
And
it sounds like, too, it became very clear that a lot of this, too, when you're realizing it wasn't anybody else really saying it at all. To a point, yes. I mean, I think it's probably reflecting back on your childhood and things like that at school when kids are calling you names and stuff, right? But it's crazy to see how that carries on. But what you're realizing is, like, it was all just beliefs.
yeah, exactly. It's very difficult because, like, when you go through, especially like pivotal moments, when your brain is still developing in school, for Christ's sake, and
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
yeah, like, and when you're told you are a certain way, so i.e., you're stupid, or more more spiteful words than that. At first, it's like that. It's like at first it feels like a little prod. It's like, oh, it's not too bad. Then you keep getting told you this certain way. It's getting over time. It's getting like more frequent. It's feeling more painful. You're like, it's starting to hurt this, and then it gets to a point where it's really hurts, and then it gets to a point where it's like, and again, just trying to use an analogy here with that, but it's like I was told I was stupid and all these other things through bullies in school, through teachers, literally teachers, people who you look up to, even driving instructor. Like, I was told I was all these things. You then get to a point where the pain is that evident, where you can't ignore it. You're like, okay, it must be true. And that's been my life, where I just believed it. So then I'm trying to add weight to, like, this is what the biggest surprise for me is, like, this actually isn't true anymore. It isn't true what they're saying, because, like, look what's happening. And I kind of want to pivot a little bit as well to, like, because I've not really mentioned this, to, like, yeah, it goes to what you're saying, like, m- the surprise with this new venture with Indie Game Joe has certainly been the reaction and my capabilities. But, like, the reason I started this new venture was because, going back to when I was really struggling, again, I have dips. This was 4 months ago, because I've only started this new venture about just over 4 months ago. I
Mm.
remember I was sat down in the office, and I was like, again, it goes back to when I was saying, you got everything, relatively speaking, for me. And I was like, we're in pre-production for a lot of our games, so there wasn't as much for me to do. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like, I've got my diagnosis. I'm trying to get better. I'm learning, I'm accepting, I'm grieving. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm just sat here. What am I doing? And I was like, I'm still feeling down. I was like, I need to, like, do something. What can I do? And it just hit me. I was like, why did I just start posting about indie games? I think I'm good at it at the time. I'm a marketer. I market games for a living, but I also have led the design of my own game. I'm heavily involved with the creation of games. I know a lot about this stuff. Like, there's all these good influencers or content creators out there who do this that don't necessarily have my background. That's not to say I'm better than them. I'm just meaning like I've got this different set of skills, which I again was thought I was an imposter with them. But I was like, why don't I just start talking about indie games, like give myself something to do, help indie developers? Like it almost was it for me, Andrew, where I was like, if I'm feeling this low, and then maybe if I can't find the strength to help myself, maybe I can use that strength to help others, and inadvertently that helps me. So I decided that I just want to start sharing indie games, and I just started doing that 4 months ago. It started out as a thing to, yes, it gives me dopamine, makes me feel good when things go viral. It gives me something to do, and it was also nice helping developers. So when I started posting the things that go viral, which I'm good at, I am good at this stuff, and one of the most fulfilling things is when I post a game, it kicks off, and the developers can just get tens of thousands of wish lists. That is an amazing feeling because it's like it's good. It's nice to do something nice. So I get, I get dope. I don't pay for anything I do like this, but I do. Maybe I'm charging for dopamine, but that's when I have doing all this new venture, it's just gone insane. Like there is this little corner, I like to call it, in the indie dev space now, Indie Game Joe. And Indie Game Joe isn't just about me. It's meant to be more like the way I describe it, like the average Joe sort of thing. And I think the average Joe is special, where I'm no different to anyone else, where it's a place where you can feel, where you can be yourself. That is what I want Indie Game Joe to be, where you can be yourself. And yes, it's a platform to grow awareness and all this, but that's the biggest thing anyway that has surprised me in doing this new venture is just like everything that everyone has said about me, the bad things, just I'm slowly beginning to see that it's not true.
Yeah. Dude, do you know what's funny? As we were just sharing that about Indie Game Joe, like as long as I've known you, I've never seen you as Indie Game Joe. Like I see them as separate things because of just what you described there. That's what I see
Mm.
Indie Game Joe as, and what I see you is different. But obviously, it completely aligns and everything. But I just thought that was so weird because you're describing that. I'm like, oh my god, that's how I've always seen it, and I didn't even recognize it until this moment.
Yeah,
which
that's
which
interesting.
is like really cool because and I think anyone here listening today that is familiar probably I might know you in a different capacity than others, but I bet you they still see it the same way,
Mm.
right? And
I'm
and
with you.
and I think that also speaks volumes to other reasons, like why you're doing those things too and stuff. And it really comes down to, and I think this is so important for all of us, when regardless if we have everything or we don't, and we're still working towards that. I think what was really important is, hey, look, you got some clarity and everything else, but there's something else missing. I realize I have so much more potential than I ever realized before, but I, there's still that feeling of something's off, something's missing, and then you started to identify it with this, and ultimately what that's doing, and I think just such an important lesson with everything we do, whether it's with ourselves, with people we know, our families, and even the work we do, is what is it that you're doing that can give you fulfillment? Because Joe, I really don't think you're like, okay, maybe I'm charging for dopamine. I don't think that's the case, really. It's not. I mean, it's part of it. It comes with the territory. It's more of like, what else can fulfill me, but doing so in a way that's X, Y, or Z, or whatever else.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I think that's so insightful, really, because and I think what you outlined is key to how we all have to think about everything that we're doing, which is, and it's so important. I've hired coaches before to help me with these types of things. And a big part of that exercise is simply this. Okay, what's everything you could possibly want? List it out. All right. And you start listing those things out. All right. But, and then once you get to that point, you're then starting to analyze them further. But like, there's one of the things I was doing is like, but how do you, achieve those things and stuff? But what does that really look like? And you're like, oh, and then you're still focusing on what those goals are, right? But then what you start realizing is, but just by focusing on those goals, the things that you really want, there are lots of other pieces that are the true things that help you get there and beyond. But what we keep doing is we keep focusing on those things. That could be goals, results, It could be like the nice things to have. It could be money. It could be whatever else you list there. But those are all very tangible things that don't necessarily fill in those blanks that it sounds like with you that you're starting to see too is these other things that are have meaningful purpose, fulfillment and stuff. Not to say other things don't have that, but it's just really interesting process that it's hard to go through.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And sometimes I feel a little bit not embarrassed, but like it sounds, I don't know. I know it's not the case, but I feel like I sometimes have to say, oh, might sound pathetic that this is doing this new venture really has. I mean, it's been great for my mental health overall in terms of like having small goals. Like it's so important with anything. And I think especially within game dev, like I do feel can be an incredibly lonely place. What it is,
Yeah.
especially if you're a solo dev.
Yep.
Like you often get bogged down and you are so like tunnel visioned in your environment and what you do, and you forget to look after yourself or forget other things are important, which is finding parts of your own happiness or things to strive for. Like a goal doesn't just have to be releasing a game and it's majorly successful. It might be learning something new one day.
Yeah.
Within that, it might be like meeting some new friends who make games. But you've got to act. You've got to be proactive with it. So it's incredibly important to have these goals. And this new venture has given me a bit more of a purpose within work because it's so important. Like work is such a big part of our lives that you've got to find that sort of balance of enjoyment and fulfillment. It's difficult with me as well because like I was talking to somebody about this the other day. It's again, I don't mean this like in a humble bragging way at all. It's not, but for me, like I feel like I've been retired for years because like we're in a position where we're in such a fortunate position again where it's like I don't look forward to weekends anymore. Friday don't feel like Friday. Saturday don't feel like Saturday. When if I want to buy a new gaming PC, I just buy it. I don't even have to think twice about it. Whereas before it was like these things you'd build towards, you'd have plans, you'd get that dopamine and kick for saving for it. And now it's just like, do you know what it's like for me, Andrew? It's kind of like on a relatively speaking, laying on a relative sort of perspective, I'm saying this. It's like I always remember playing The Sims back in like The Sims, is that 2002 and 2004, I think it was actually. Was it The Sims 2? And I remember loving that game so much. And then, like a fool, I ended up finding the cheat codes or something for it. And I could unlock everything. And the game was so fucking boring.
Yeah.
I never played it again. And for me, compared to when I was a decorator, is what I'm saying. Like, I used to love weekends. I used to love coming home. I used to love the structure so much. It was great for my ADHD in that sense. I used to love saving for something and the reward it was after.
Yeah.
And now it's like, it's all the opposite. It's like,
It's so true.
Yeah, I don't mean that in any weird, like, cocky way. I'm saying it in
No.
sense
I
of,
know. I can relate too from playing Resident Evil, the original one. I became obsessed with that game to the point where I figured I did everything I could to beat the game under 2 hours. Right. And upon doing so, upon completion, then it will start a new save file, and then you have the rocket launcher with infinite ammo. And I'm like, this is so awesome. Like I reached that goal. I just knew it would be awesome to have. And then how much longer did I play through that again? Even though I know I could beat the game in 2 hours, like it didn't last long because I'm like, okay, I can kill everything with shot. Okay, this is not fulfilling anymore. It's boring, right? But yeah, I had another game version of that too. But it goes back to everything else that you were saying, right? You have all this stuff, and then you realize, and we can equate that to games, and in kind of weird, twisted way that life is like games, but not the Matrix.
No, I know what you mean. I guess more of the point with what I'm trying to say is like, I'm not ungrateful for my position. I've worked very hard and incredibly fortunate. But also, I guess for people who are listening, I want to also say like the realities of success is very subjective. Again, people might look at me, assume I've always been. Like, people say to me, "Oh, Joe, you're famous in the indie scene now." Yes, I don't see it like that at all. I want it to be like that. People might look at this has been the case from time to time, digital cyber cherries, and people do think you've just always had this popular game or you sold some X amount of huge copies, and it's like it's not that's not always the case. Success is very subjective. It's how you define it, and that's what's important here. And again, in my opinion, because I feel like I really am living it and lived it. Again, there's only so much money you can work physically with your own two hands,
Yep.
like in a sort of that manual labor type of job. I know that. I did it for 13 years. And more money hasn't made me happier.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's made me unhappier, to be honest. It brings a lot of stress and a hell of a lot of guilt. Like you got to imagine me leaving my brothers and my dad, then earning what I earn, and then you know
Yeah.
it's an incredible amount of guilt, and it makes you financially less stressed. And I do think there's a big difference there. I am so less happier in so many ways since leaving the family business. And you could say, well, why do you go back to it if you're not? I am happy doing what I'm doing. I'm just trying to be honest and realistic about the realities of it. Money doesn't buy happiness. It really doesn't. It relieves stress, yes, in different ways. And that stress
Correct.
may have different meanings for different circumstances or for different people. But for me, it's not this thing where it's just a button and you're happier. Like, no, like so much. It's the small things in life that are so important. And that's like with making games, it's just you've got to, the biggest thing I always say with games, it's not the sales, it's not the reviews. Yes, all that matters. It's
Correct.
important depending on your goals. But what matters the most is you've got to enjoy doing what you're doing. You've got to enjoy making that game. Because if you don't, the rest is going to fall apart very quickly, like everything around you. You've got to enjoy making the game. That's what should come first. And then if you can enjoy it and like a healthy mindset, healthy work balance, everything falls into place. But it's really important to enjoy making what you're making. But yeah, that's the realities of
Yeah.
it. It's not this. I didn't just leave and to make games, leave the business. It took me, I was in a fortunate position where I could save a bit of money because I had the full-time job. I had the support of my family. It wasn't easy. People sometimes do think, oh, family business, it's easier. In a sense, it wasn't. It wasn't. I kind of wish like I worked at an office or somewhere else because when it's family, my mum knew if I'm having late nights because I'd be at home. God,
Yeah.
I'd get right bollocking. Or there's more personal, emotional attachment. Your dad or your brothers know if you stayed up really late, and do you know what I mean? So it causes different. So it's not just as like, oh, you've had it easier. No, like it's my advice is to people. Again, I'm going off a tangent here, but like, don't quit your fucking job to make games like
Right.
commercially. Think about it first. I didn't just do this and it just worked out. It nearly didn't work out. It's been scary. It's been hard. I already had like some good savings to leave decorating. It was kind of an opportune moment. Sounds awful saying that, but COVID couldn't decorate at the time, lockdowns,
Yep. Yep.
everyone playing games, everything, the stars kind of aligned. And that might not be the case for anybody listening who's doing game dev or starting it. Like, save some money first, have a security there, and at first, really try and enjoy doing it.
Yeah. One last question before we, through everything that we talked about and whatnot, I think it's become apparent in terms of what this journey, people's journeys and stuff, can reveal, and ultimately the goal is finding clarity. In your case, it's when everything came to a head, and you're still working through it and processing it and stuff. Clear. But I think it's important to call out that clarity isn't really a destination, right? It's just this layer that keeps building. As I think you're realizing yourself in the moment, right? So for you, what would you say that ongoing process looks like now that you have something, even though it's fairly recent, to look back to?
So are you saying like it's not, clarity isn't like a one-off thing? What does
Yeah, it's
that
like
look
I
like
got a
for
clear
you
idea
now?
of everything now, and that's it, right? It's like you're back on that mountain again, but it's a different mountain.
Yeah. I think like honestly, it looks kind of a lot less neat than people probably probably want it to. Like
It's
it's
definitely
not
not
like I
neat.
had it's not like I had this. I had one big realization and now I'm enlightened and sorted. It's not that, guys. Like, really, I'm a big work in progress. Like the beginning of when we spoke, like I was being honest, yeah, I'm not doing great still. It's helping what I'm doing this new venture massively. God, I hate to think where I would have been without doing this new venture. But it's more so like clarity keeps sort of growing. It's not one off. And yeah, every few months I'm understanding a bit more about myself and other things. And that all that new stuff of understanding, I suppose, reframes reframes the stuff that I thought I had figured out, but probably didn't.
Yep.
It just it's like you said, it keeps building. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's like it keeps building layers. Like the diagnosis was one layer, being a dad gave me another, and they just keep stacking like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
roguelike. They just keep stacking and stacking. And in practice, it's me being a bit more honest with myself than I used to be. And I've been very self-aware all my life, but this is me being even more so. And when that feeling shows up, now I really try and pay attention to it, like that self-awareness. Instead of like pushing through it, what we mentioned kind of earlier,
Hmm.
like pushing through, now I try and sit back and be like, okay,
Let's understand this.
yeah, I'm gonna really like I've learned basically it's probably pointing again, it's like a secret chest somewhere, like or a map in a game, like it's pointing somewhere. Like there's a waterfall there. I'm just gonna walk past it. There's probably something behind that
Yeah.
waterfall.
Yeah.
And now I go looking. I stop and I'll look. And
That's just for a quick game analogy here. That's exactly what games do, right? Like as a
yeah,
player, we go in and we might not. We are a waterfall. We can't go that way, right? But then we see another waterfall, and there's some event in the game that tells us that or hints that hey, we can go into that waterfall. And lo and behold, there's that like treasure or a map or something, right? And then as we keep going forward, we now have this understanding of
mm,
oh, waterfalls are no longer going to limit us, right?
yeah.
So what are those waterfalls in your life?
No, exactly. Yeah. I think like the main thing really like to sum it up is I've kind of stopped expecting to arrive everywhere, which weirdly is the thing that's made me calmer. Like I used to think clarity was a place you get to and then you're done. And now I think what I'm learning is it's just a thing you keep doing. Like
Yeah.
it's a practice more than a destination is kind of what I'm trying to say.
I yeah. Okay. And I love that. And again, it's just it's so good to hear because how we frame things, how we look at things can make all the difference in how our journeys unravel, right? Everybody has something different, experiencing things differently, but at the same time, it really matters how we approach it and how we look at those things to get us where we ultimately are going. So,
Mm, I agree there.
Joe,
I think. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say. I think like, yeah, it's like a send off or a thing for me. A bit of, I think like a send off for others. I'm saying like is I think one of the hardest things for people to accept is, and for me, but I think for people in general, is like the thing they've been trying or we treat as a flaw, that thing we keep trying to fix or like hide might actually be the most important part of you. And we spend so long trying to file the weird edges of ourselves. I know I have to fit what we think or thought we were supposed to be in and accepting that those edges are the point, that's really hard because it means a lot of the trying to fit in you've done was wasted energy and nobody really wants to admit that, but that's exactly the thing that lets you move forward because the second you stop fighting who you actually are, you stop wasting like all that energy and you can put it into the stuff that matters to you or that's actually real. And for me, that was the whole change.
yeah.
I've kind of stopped trying to be a tidy or different version of, I've stopped trying to be a different version of someone else. And I've started to build, everything around how I actually work as a person on my brain, and that's when things genuinely have gotten better. Both the work with the new venture and me. So again, it's just the clarity thing, like you said. I think is really really good what you've said. So yeah, clarity isn't. It's not a reward you get at the end, guys. It's more like permission to stop pretending.
Yeah,
And
permissions.
once you've got that permission, you can actually sort of move forward more and
Yeah,
see things. And
buffs. They're
and
buffs.
I have to say this as well. I have to say this because I am. Where is it? I'm a big Kung Fu Panda fan, and Master Oogway once said, and I've taken this with me everywhere. He said, "Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That is why they call it the present." And I think it's so important in making games, especially like we had such a terrible launch with one of our games, Don't Scream Together. Yes, you've got to let go of the past, but you've also got to learn from it. The biggest competition is yourself. Are you a better version of who you are today compared to yesterday? And enjoy the moments, because the only true thing we own are moments in time. We don't really own anything. I don't really own my house, but we own moments in time. And that means enjoying it. Andrew, like you look back at things like pictures of kids or family members who have passed, and you look back and you get this nostalgia, this grief. I mean, grief is the price we pay for love. Like, it's love is grief, really. And I'm saying, like, in these moments of distress, or moments where we look back, like they seem really special because they are, but at the time, they're just moments. They don't seem special. They're ordinary moments. It's only until it's gone it becomes extraordinary and you think it's special. But every moment, I'm saying, guys, and it's hard to grasp. I know it's preachy, but it's something I'm trying to do, is special. So enjoy the moments, enjoy the wins as much as you enjoy the
Yeah.
losses. And this is all with game development. Like, we've had really tough launches. We've had bad times. We've had made mistakes within the team, within the structure. We've gone through so much, and the reason we've stuck together for this long, and I've been with the same team for 10 years now, pretty much, is because we've learned that, yeah, you've got to like roll with the punches and enjoy and learn the process. So I'm just saying, try and enjoy it. It goes back to what I said, really try and enjoy it. And I know it can be difficult if you're really struggling with other things. I know it can be, like, it's not hard, but the overall takeaway I would say from me with this is just really appreciate like where you are and what you're doing, because it's not always green grass. It's never really green grass online when you see people. It's
Yeah.
really not. It's really, really not. I look at people and I can be like, look at the Mecha Chameleon guy, 10 million copies he sold. Sometimes I'm really happy for the guy, but then sometimes I'm like, why can't that be me? Why can't I just sell that
Yeah.
much? But yeah,
Yep.
it's all relative. It's all relative. We don't know what that guy's going through. You don't know what's going to happen. You've got to like really be happy for people, learn from them. Don't be resentful, be thoughtful, be willing to learn that. And you are what you consume, and that isn't just calories. It is the people you surround yourself with. Surround yourself with good energy. That goes back to my team. We've had the same team, the same friends for this long, because we all vibe with each other. We all learn from each other, and just pick up good karma, pick up good energy, and you will get there. And have realistic expectations. Like, launching a game and selling 10 copies might be a success to you. Maybe you're not commercially, maybe it hasn't been a commercial success, but maybe that wasn't actually the goal. Maybe like the goal was to release commercial game, and it's small steps. It is just small steps. So I'm just saying, it takes time to get where you want. And if you get where you want, it might not quite be what it is. For me, it wasn't. I thought I was going to be like the happiest man on earth doing what I've done. And I'm realizing now, like, gone all my life, yeah, being told something, and now I'm going all my life now trying to unlearn everything I'm being told that I was. Like, it's all perspective, man. It's all perspective. And yeah, I think that's what I'm just really trying to emphasize. Be happy with what you got. Be happy with what you got and make it into something.
Well said. And nothing else to add to that. Is so well said. Well, Joe, I know we're on time here, man, but it has truly been a pleasure and honor, especially because I know how much it is for you to put yourself out there and everything, like, and that you pour your heart and soul into all of this, not just what you share here, everywhere, and everything else that you do. So, again, I can't thank you enough for being here today and taking the time. And yes, it was a long one, folks, but honestly, these types of topics, this type of discussion doesn't get talked about enough, and the time was warranted and everything. But it doesn't matter about that. What matters is what we discussed here today. And again, can't thank you enough, Joe, for doing what you do and being here. It's been great.
No worries at all. Thank you as always, Andrew, for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I don't want to apologize, but I do apologize if I tantrummed a bit. That's why it's been a bit.
I'll apologize too if anyone started singing TLC Waterfalls after I mentioned Waterfalls so many times. So, but no, Joe, it's been great. Thank you so much for being here today, man.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of Indie Game Movement. I'm Andrew Pappas, your host, and the show's producer is Mustafa Price. Show notes for this episode can be found by visiting rengenmarketing.com, the number episode of the show. Rengen Marketing is a consulting marketing company that helps indie devs with their marketing efforts. Whether you need guidance with your game's marketing strategy or could use a free marketing plan template, then please visit www.rengenmarketing.com and take action. A special thanks to Dakota Saw for Season 2's opening theme and Melissa Gellis for the new logo design. And as always, thanks for being such great listeners, and we'll see you next time on Indie Game Movement.